I'm releasing a new track on Musical Freedom, the label of the legend Tiësto. This track is called HYPNOTIC. It's in collaboration with my friend Louis Demarque, and it's out now. To celebrate that, I just wanted to show you a little bit of the process. We will go through the production part, a little bit of mixing, and finally, the mastering. Everything is in the box, no analog chain on this one. If you like in-depth production, mixing and mastering video, I invite you to check my Patreon. I have now like more than 40 videos. I show some projects of my client that I have in mixing and mastering. I show, of course, techniques that I use in my own track that I will not show on YouTube, obviously. And to celebrate the release of this new track, I just want to offer 5 access to the Patreon, so the link is in description, and get your month free on my Patreon. Now let's dive into the project. So of course, as you see, there is a lot of waves because obviously it's a collaboration, so Louis sent me a lot of waves, but I will show you also my parts. If I remember well, I think there were only like a break and a drop when he sent me the idea. It's an old project because now I think it's more than a year that we finished this track, but the time that you send to labels, you collect feedback, that you find a release date, sometimes it's really long. So, but whatever. Let's start simply with the drop, the elements that we have, the difference between first drop and second drop. So there is kick, bass, another sub-layer, and there is the main lead with the effect and all. Let's dive directly into like here. So simply, the kick is from Louis stems. I just selected only one that I duplicate because they were not exactly the same, like the transients were moving, but I didn't do a lot of stuff here. You can see just a little shaper box to shape the length of the kick, reduce a little bit of the transient, and a little bit of EQ. That's it. It goes into a kick bass bus. So now we go directly to the bass. I mean, the entire low end without the kick. It's a Psytron bass that I use a lot. It's a simple serum patch from Endeavour. All the bass Psy preset that I use, and even each bass, I always try to check the phase when it starts, and I put always the randomization at 0 to have always the same starting point of the phase. After, it's just a little EQ with a filter, I assume, for some moment here only at the end of the first drop. After, I have Dr. Midside from Matthew Lane, just to create stereo from the mid signal. After, I have just an utility to push the volume and enter the right volume here in the air bass. I use this kind of rack like nearly on all my sub bass or low end, if I need to open the bass in stereo or if I need to add some harmonics. So it's for that I use this utility, because sometimes I don't need to push too much. Sometimes I arrive like already with too much volume, so I reduce, etc, etc. And after, it's only the sidechain. The compressor and the shaper box is on the kick. One is more to have like to take the shape of the kick, and the other one is just to be like a little bit more precise at the beginning. The SUSI 2 is in the sidechain as well, but as you can see, it's triggered by the sub. It's just like when there is the sub playing in the same time, it will just reduce a little bit the frequency of the sub. I didn't add anything on the sub, just the volume that it's -10, so it's just that maintain a little bit this low end. And after, all is going to the kick bass. I use this ocular scope that is a free plugin. Sorry, I have some stuff in the bass sub group directly that it's the SUSI 2 as well. The same that I use from the sub. This is the same principle. Like each time the low end of the kick will hit, it will reduce a little bit the low end of our bass group. And I have another shaper box just to have the few milliseconds of the kick, like that. I mean, that there is only the kick hitting, because the SUSI 2 can sometimes change the transient of your kick. Check that. This goes into the whole drum and bass. So it's like now we are taking the kick and bass plus all my drums in this bus channel. So let's just dive quickly. There is not a lot. I will go into the second drop for this one, because we have a little particularity on this track, is that the second drop has a clap and a snare that is not in the first drop. Simple, all the loops, if I remember well, are from Louis. What I add, it was this snare, this simple snare from Evolution of Sound, Evo Sound. But as you can see, there is nothing, like nothing. There is just a low cut. It was more like the volume. And I have the snare that is the same. Pre-drop, some fills here. It's just the EQ is different. Normally, I like to use the Pultec EQ for this kind of stuff. But as you can see, there is really not a lot. Only in the drums group, like the main groups with everything. I will not go through everything because if not, it will be too long. But of course, there is this 909 snare that it's like doubling at the end of the build-up, at the end of the first drop, etc., etc. But if not, it will be on the break that we have these cinematic drums, but we will go through this when we will talk about the break. What I have in this entire chain of drums is firstly is like a 50-50 sidechain to like feel that there is a sidechain. It's like a transparent sidechain. It's a great technique to use. It will reduce, but you will bring back a little bit of the original. I use as well this ring mode type of sidechain. That is a technique I learned from Nest Acoustic. Maybe you know him on Instagram with all his reels about sound designing and all. It's a monster, this guy. He showed one time this ring modulation sidechain stuff. I just tried on this track and it worked, so I've left it. After I have the Suzy 2, the same, but now triggered by the low end of the whole kick bass to just make a little bit of space in the low drums here that you can see. It's tiny, but I mean, when we are listening with everything, it's not a lot, but in fact, this is what we are removing. And I like to do that like little by little on each track like that. It's like each element is at its own place, and if it's taking a little bit too much, and if it's too much, you will leave it when you will hear from the Suzy 2. Now let's dive into the main synth, that it's this one. And as you can see, we are in the second drop, so there is more layer than the first one. The first one is only like the main lead. This main lead is from Seven Skies, if I remember well, on the main stage. Yeah, it's main stage Serum Pact. I don't remember if I tweak something on it. There is a lot of course, effect. If I get rid of it, it's like the typical detune synth, but with everything. Completely different. I will just go through like quickly. There is an EQ. There is this Dr. Mid side, just to take the mid, put a little bit on the side, and put a little bit of the side in the mid as well. After, I have like a little auto pan on the dry signal, but it's really just to give a groove. And I have a plate reverb from Synths, so it's the super plate. If you have only the little plate, it's already great, fantastic plugin. This one is like the big brother or the big sister of the little plate. I also add this auto pan on this, but a little bit more. So we don't have like the same amount of groove, because it's not using, as you see, it's not like an auto pan. It's more like it's used like an LFO effect, but it's not the same on the reverb. The reverb is like a lot more than that. After we have an OTT, the Ableton user ICU coming right now. I didn't use the real OTT from Ableton because it was just easier to use this one. But obviously, we can use the one that it's included with Ableton in the multiband dynamics. I have another reverb that it's more here like, to do like automation and like make this sound a little bit more alive, that it's not always the same. And this auto pan is only for the end. You see, like it goes up until the end of the phrase. Right now we have this EQ, but in fact he's doing nothing, like nothing. It's always off. I just forget to remove. And after it's sidechain. I mean, I will not explain what is sidechain. And I assume you know, one is like more to have the shape of the kick. The other one is, it was for testing simply this ring modulation sidechain that it sounds well. And the other one is just for the beginning. This one, I mean, I use Kickstart and not Chamberbox because it was faster. For me personally, I use Kickstart like nearly always when I need to go deeper and I don't arrive to achieve what I want with the Kickstart. I take simply the Shaper box. And after it's just a clipper. We'll see if it works a lot. Yeah. Yes, it works a lot. It was to catch the pick. I mean, that's it, because this one is the same. It's just with the melody. And the other, I just add like some effect on the Louis one. You see, for example, this one, I add this reverb, and basically that's it. After it goes into this plug and ear candy group, the same, we have this kind of loop. You see, that works well. We have this like shot here. And I think that's it. There is here this synth effects. And this is pretty that for the drop with the kick bass, the drums, and all. FX are simple FX. For example, this one from Luis, the same, this one, like a reverse. We have a bunch of stuff like that. That's it, etc., etc. The instrument group goes after into the old music with the FX. And I have, as always, like a little bit more of, just to give it a little bit more when I feel that we need that. But as the same, with the dry wet, not as the maximum in this entire group. It's just to like add this pumping effect, but not too much. Again, the standard clip, just to clip like when we have too much stuff. We'll go through now just the vocal quickly. So the vocal is like from a sample pack that Luis found. It was already like quite well. What I've done, it was just to separate those glitches here. It is just a little ping pong delay effect. And the same here for the break. Like, I didn't change anything on that. Like the particularity of what I've done was here. I've done these tiny things on the pre-dub. Is like I had this little alter boy at -5 in the formant to keep the tonality, but just to have this darker voice with a little bit of drive to have this little bit of saturation. And I just put up here, like we increased just the mix. And here we can see, because I like to put this kind of subtle difference between all the elements to not have like always the same break, the same build-up, the same pre-drop, etc., etc. So for example, here in the first part of the song, like the first pre-drop, we have this autopan effect that we don't have. But for example, we have here in the drop. The volume automation is just because when you are using the little afterboy, you can lose a little bit of volume. So it was just to shape a little bit. Like to make like the before and after at the same volume. Vocal, I mean, it's just for me to see well the project because we have nothing. Those two goes into the vocal and vocal goes into the all vocal. We could totally take those two and send here in all vocal. It just visually for me it was easier. And now let's go to the break. So you can see there is a lot more. So I will just start. We had like these cinematic drums with just a tiny EQ, and we have a lot and lot of stuff. It's for that the break like is sounding like. So we'll go quick. First, it's a Reese bass from my own pack, Detuned Ray Volume 1. It's like my very first one that I released last year. So I invite you to check it out. I will put the link in the description if you want to buy it. But it's a simple Reese bass with nothing, like a little bit of growl effect on it. The second one is playing as a bass, but in fact is the same lead as the drop, playing as a bass, with only this tiny note at the end. Look, for example, here. Filtered, so it helps to remember something of the drop, like it's like everything were linked together. I remember this one is Luis that sent me back a new one after I've done those two in the break, because he wanted like something like a little bit more, something a little bit more hard like that. So it's not typically a bass for me. It's more a lead with low frequency, but now we have the harp. Those one are all from Luis. There is like nearly nothing on it. The synths, look, nothing. I mean, if it sounds well, you left like that. You just check the volume and that's it. After we have the pluck. So the pluck are one from Luis that I just tweak some effect on it. Another one, and this one. That, if you remember well, are the same of this one. Those are the same. We have a piano as well. The same, it was from Luis, and a little bit of ambience. And that's it. That's it. If not, it's some drums here and. And now everything of that is going into like what I call pre-mixbus. This technique is totally stole from Jason Joshua. The whole music is like now, except this in parallel, it's in V2 that it's squashing everything up and down like that. And I put this back in parallel here. If not, it's only sidechain stuff. As you can see, there is this. The SUSI 2 will trigger the low frequency that we have in the drums and the kick and the bass, and like remove that on the all music channel just to win space. Look, the other one are for the vocal when the vocal is playing. I have two. I have one. I will start with the track spacer, that is the one that it's like the large one. And the SUSI 2 in sidechain, as you can see, is vocal sidechain Dada Life, because I stole that preset from my collab with Dada Life. He sent me that to put the vocal into my own session, and I saved it because I really like it. I just need to tweak a little bit when I use into another songs, but it works well. It's more like more precise frequency deeping. It helps to have like the vocal like a little bit more up comparing to the instrument. All drum and bass have this orange clip. Now I like to use the multiband, but the multiband came with a new update that when we were finishing this song, it was not available. So now let's go to the mix bus. It looks a lot, but it's not, you will see. I start with this Pro Q3 that in fact I put that nearly at the end. We were finalizing the master because I felt that we had like a little bit too much of low end on some material that where I was listening. I remember this low end contour preset from Jason Joshua that normally I think he used that on these Kick 808 or in his old drum and bass. I like to use this at the beginning of my mix bus. It's not something that you will usually do, but it works. And after I have this, that in fact was the really first EQ. It's just a low end EQ here for everything that normally I don't do that a lot. We started with that, so I didn't want it to change again, to not have any change in the feeling of the sound. The same for the side here. It's because we needed to clean a little bit, but you see it's 74 Hz, so it's not quite low, but it's not quite high as well. Normally I like to be a little bit less or even not use any, because again those kind of EQing are made before in the chain. And I just push a little bit here, just like, yeah, the bright part, you will see, like just to add a little bit of air. After I have this waves that I use only for one particular technique, I use this in parallel comp here. So if we monitor, what we add is that. And you re-inject that here, for example here it's -10, and it will help to make it shine this area that we are missing in our track. After I have two stereo enhancement. To be honest, it was just because back in the time testing those two, I don't use a lot of stereo imaging into my master normally, because again, all is done before. But I mean, I was trying those plugins at this moment. I like it, but you can see it's like 1.5, this one, and this is just like opening and some phase limitation, but you can see. It's really tiny. I don't know if even with the YouTube codec and all, depending where you are listening, but it's like opening a little bit the track and make it like, yeah, a little bit more 3D. Because of course, we don't want to overdo at this stage. Those two are really great plugins, but be careful if you put too much, especially in the SPL Big. After is this utility that is just doing like this little trick that I like to do. It's like the break are lower than the drop before my first stage of clipping and limiting. You can see there is a bunch of automation here. -1 to -2, and it goes back to 0 here. While you are doing this technique, you must not feel that you are lowering your volume. Right after, we have like this standard clip in hard clip mode, just to catch peak before enter. In my first stage of limiting, even you will see the God particle, so it's not only limiting, but and after, the God Particle, a plugin that I use a lot. My advice is you just enter in the right volume and it does what you want. If you work like me since the beginning of your production, I don't touch normally this. Now I like to put down the limiting at 0. I left on in case there is peak, and I use other limiter after. Really depends. On this one I left because I worked within. So all the decision I've made before are taking with that on. So if I put off or change anything, there is no sense. But it's like a Mixbus processor. You have a multi-band compressor that will glue your track. There is like an EQ, a little bit of saturation, a little bit of opening in the stereo field. And even if it's put 100% here, the little trick is 100%. It's in reality inside the plugin 50%. Everything inside except the limiting, it's in full parallel. So it's for that it's kind of transparent. It adds something well, but it's not like overdo. I assume some people don't like. Personally, I really love. And I mean, that's it. As you saw, the limiter is not working a lot. Why? Because obviously we have a clipper before. Even if this will change the dynamic. I mean, even here in the drums, I forget to say, I have a L2. Everything already is clipped, is managed, is in its own space with not a lot of picks, including the instrument. So it's normal that it's not working a lot. And this is what I want. After I have this DSing, that it's a little DS. You will see. Again, it looks a lot what we are taking out, but it cleans a little bit. Sometimes I use this Pro DS, sometimes I will use the Smart DS from Sony Bell, it's great. Sometimes just the little Wave DS. Sometimes I will not use anything. It depends if we have a lot of harsh stuff. In this moment, we have a lot of... But in this track, I felt that we had, so we needed to lower a little bit. And I always separate Mixbus and Master, but in fact, we could take those two and put in the Master. It's just, I like to separate the Mixbus process with the volume push limit stuff into another, because what I like is to have my own sound, and I want the same sound, I mean, with or without limiting. I want that my limiters, even clipper, but my limiters, I want them to work in the most transparent way possible. And for that, usually I like to use the Ozone 11. There is a lot of mode that I can switch. You see, it's not a big push. It's only 1.5 because we have already here a +5. I know how I gain stage my stuff until here, so I don't have any problem. I mean, all is gain stage in the right level, so I know why my gold particle is +5, etc., etc. Sometimes here I will push more. Sometimes I will even not use one because I'm already quite loud. But you can see. We will listen to the delta, that is something really important. And this is how I like to listen to the difference between all the modes. Of course, not only because you are listening to the music like that, and not in delta mode. So be careful with this. You can really hear what is affecting, if it's the bass, if it's the high, if it's too much. And that leads into our final track. We can see the volume, for example. So you can see we have a peak at -4.9 that it's already really loud, so we don't need to go above that. If the track can, you can go, but it was not worth it. And after I have this tonal balance control, again with my own packs that I will put in the description if you want those. I have my own top that I have done myself, creating like hundreds and hundreds of songs to have the perfect balance for each genre. And of course, for this one, I've used the Big Room Techno. I don't produce with it or mix with it. It's just to check sometime. And usually, if it sounds good, you are in it. But as you can see, and there is no problem really if you are not like, if you are a little bit low here or too much. Every track is different. You don't need to be like perfectly in the middle. That is, it's only an average between all the Big Room Techno drop, when those drop have everything, kick, bass, drums, leads, everything, and they are really more precise. For example, you have the tech house here, but if we compare, for example, to EDM, I mean, it's too large. If we take Future Rave, that it looks like the Big Room Techno. The Big Room Techno is from here, it's a little bit thinner, but I mean, it's okay. I think I've shown everything. I will not go into like all the routing and all how I work like that. I have the radio edit into the same session because it's easier. The only difference is we have a kick in the intro here that we don't have here, because we felt that in the radio edit it was not well to start directly with this kick. So it's the only difference. If not, it's exactly the same track. I invite you to go to check this new single on Spotify, Deezer, Apple Music, wherever you want. Thanks for watching. Check all the links for my packs that are for Serum or for tonal balance control, as well my Patreon, all my music, and I think that's it.